And here is Ryan S., a transformation self-confidence coach, keynote speaker, and author who has inspired thousands through his remarkable journey from battling life's greatest challenges to achieving a life of pure fulfillment. Having faced the depths of despair, Ryan turned his life around through various healing modalities, including the transformative power of ayahuasca, a traditional Amazonian plant medicine. Today, he dedicates his life to guiding others on their own paths to self-discovery and personal growth, sharing his story as a beacon of hope and inspiration for those looking to discover, design, and live their dream life. So, welcome to the show, Ryan. Great to have you here.
Hello, my friend, and thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate you.
Oh, an absolute honor. So, Ryan, tell us about yourself. I mean, you're in Colombia right now. Why are you in Colombia?
Listen, my life is literally like a movie. I've been there, done that, got multiple t-shirts, and yeah, we're going to speak about this all today. So the reason why I'm here is by making really one uncomfortable decision and taking that uncomfortable action, which we're going to talk about today, which I believe many of us have to take in order to get us to the place where we ultimately want to be in life.
Absolutely. So, tell us about that one time in your life which changed your whole life.
Okay, yeah. So just a bit about myself. Like growing up, I was like that confused kid at school. I had no real dreams, desires, visions, goals, for instance. Like all of my other school friends wanted to be like firefighters, police officers, astronauts, all of those sort of things, models and all this. They want to be on the cover of a magazine. Me, I had no goals. I didn't know what to do with my life. So growing up through, say, childhood in school, I was very confused. And leading into, say, early adulthood, where it was time to pick the career choice, again, I had no guidance or support in that area, which led me to become a car mechanic. I don't know why. The reason really was because I like to ride motorbikes. And I thought, because I like to ride bikes, why wouldn't I like to fix cars? That was the thought that went through my mind. So I decided to become a car mechanic. And yeah, look, it was okay to begin with because I was progressing, right? I was learning on a daily basis. I was discovering new things, how to fix certain things. And it was joy, it was excitement. But that joy and excitement almost turned to sort of bore and, mundane. It was just the same old stuff. And in life, like if we're not growing, we're dying. And it got to a point where I'd almost plateaued, and I was thinking, is this right? The right decision for me? And I didn't really know what to do. But then one thing happened at the age of 18 that literally flipped my life upside down. So one specific Saturday evening, my friend invited me to go to a nightclub, and this nightclub was so close to my parents' house where I was living at the time. And me and my friends, we would go there at least twice a week, sometimes even three times a week to this same club because it was small, everybody knew everybody, and it was almost like a little family. Like we'd go there, have a few drinks, dance, and just have fun, right? And as an 18-year-old child, like I want you guys to think back. If you're say older than 18, I just want you to think back for a minute of those say first times when you went out clubbing, partying, and how much you were excited to go out and just enjoy time with friends, right? And me and my friends would, like I say, always go out. But this one specific night, I worked on the Saturday and I was so tired. And my friend called me up and he said, Ryan, come on, let's go. It's going to be so fun. We're going to have the time of our lives. So in the end, I gave in. I said, come on then, let's go. So we go to the nightclub and we go in there and look, the music was pumping, the drinks were flowing, and we were literally dancing the night away. But then a few hours into the night, we noticed there was this group of lads. And these lads we had never seen before. And like I said, I didn't know everyone, but I knew the majority of people in that club because we'd go there so often. But this one specific group were almost like troublemakers. They were out to cause trouble, right? They were out to cause a problem. And before you know it, these guys were starting to argue with my older friends. And me and my younger friends were all sort of stood there just watching it all unfold. And there was a bit of sort of pushing and shoving and shirt tugging, but nothing really major. And before you know it, this group got sort of separated and everything went fine and everyone sort of separated and just went their own ways and carried on with the night. But a few hours later, me and my friends obviously decided to leave the nightclub, and we left and we entered the taxi. But as we entered the taxi and started to drive out of the car park, we noticed that these same angry men left the club as well. And they come over to our taxi and they literally pulled us out of the taxi in the car park. And they just started to say, like, we've already ordered this. And as much as we was driving out of the nightclub already, like we was leaving, the taxi driver turned on us and he said, actually, no, they have ordered it. You need to get out. So we was confused, but okay, in the end, after a short disagreement, we just said, look, it'll be okay to get another taxi. Like we thought it'd be wise, to get a separate taxi back to the safety of our parents' homes. So we flagged down another taxi. We left the car park. We turned left and left again onto a dark, unlit road. And as we're driving down this, say, dark road, we noticed that those same bright, white, shining headlights filled the whole interior of our taxi. Because obviously our taxi just lit up like there was someone shining a light straight in the windows. Like it was just full beam in our taxi. So we're looking at each other thinking, what's going on? And then we hear like tooting and beeping. And straight away, our driver receives a call through his radio with those same angry men just screaming down the radio saying, like, pull the car over. So our taxi driver just began to slow the car. So me and my friends are like looking at each other thinking, why is he stopping? So we started to ask the taxi driver, like, why are you stopping? What's the reason for you for stopping the vehicle? But he was just silent. He didn't say a word. And he pulled the car up onto the pavement and he just stopped. So me and my friends are looking at each other like, what's happened? What have we done wrong? What's going to happen now? We were scared. We was confused. And before you know it, there was a bam, 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 a loud knock on the passenger front window. So my friend opened the window because that car had just pulled up behind us and switched the lights up off also. So my friend opened the window and said, like, what's the problem? But literally, as he was finishing his words, he just started to get punched through the window. So me and my friends, obviously scared, worried, opened the doors to try and say, stop this madness from happening. As I opened my door was just ripped open and I was greeted by that same fist. I hadn't even had a chance to literally undo my seatbelt and I was glued to the back of my seat like a sitting duck. Like I couldn't move forwards because my seatbelt had locked and this guy was just pounding me in the left side of the temple. And he wasn't stopping, like he was just going again and again and again, like so many times. And I was worried, I was scared, I was desperately trying to undo that belt. And the buckle was doing obviously what the buckle should do, which was to lock. And with that being said, it was keeping me trapped in this nightmare. And in all honesty, at one point, I just said to myself, like, Ryan, this is how you're going to die. Like, I thought I was going to die in that moment because this guy was just like showing no signs of stopping at all. Like, I thought he was just going to beat me to death.
Oh my God.
And then
Oh,
finally, luckily, thankfully, I popped the buckle. And as I popped the buckle and removed the seatbelt, the beating stopped, which allowed me to move across to the other door. And I got out of the, say, driver's rear door and I just run down a separate road. And I remember looking back and it was like horrible to see. Like my friends were just being beaten up by these lads. Even the girl that was there, like our girlfriend, she was getting beaten up by these guys. And I was
oh,
just like, what the hell is happening? Like, what the fuck is happening, basically? So I was just worried and scared. I just thought we need to get back home like now. So I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I didn't even think about calling the police. I just thought I'm going to ring a friend who lives like so close. He'll come and get us. So I didn't call the police. I didn't call an ambulance, even though my heavy head was just spinning round and round.
no.
I called my friend and I called him. I said, like, come and pick me up because I knew him and his girlfriend. She had a car and they were going to come and drive round. So I thought they can come and get us. So I was just like, please come and get us quick. And
Mm.
I like hid in this bush and I was just hiding basically, waiting for my friend to come and get us. And my heavy head was just spinning round and round. And I don't really know how long I stood there, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I think it was like 5 or 10 minutes max. And my friend arrived in the car and they were just shouting, like, jump in, get in. And I got in. And as we turned around and went back to like where it was all happening, it was all gone. So it must have only lasted like a couple of minutes, and they must have all disappeared in the taxis. So I was telling my friend like it was here, but he was like, no, no one's here. So we drove back to my parents, and as we're driving back, my heavy head was just like falling down. And at one point, I literally rested it on the side of the window, and I just held my head against the window because I couldn't keep my head up. And my friend was like, "Ryan, we need to take you to hospital. Like, we're gonna drive you to hospital." And in that moment, I just believed like I had a few drinks and I just been beaten up, and I truly believe like I'll be totally fine in the morning. So I just said to my friend, like, no, please take me home. And we was having a bit of a debate or an argument, I guess. Like he was adamant we're gonna go to hospital. And I was like, just take me home. In the end, I got angry with him. I was like, just take me home. Like, I need my bed. In that moment, all I wanted is just to get in my bed and just sleep. I thought I was going to sleep it off and be fine in the morning. However, the last thing I remember was obviously arriving back at my parents' home. I got out of the car and my friend said, like, make sure you ring us in a few hours. And I was like, it's fine. I walked up to the front door of my parents' home, put my hand on that handle, opened the door, obviously walked through. And after this, I remember nothing. Like I can literally talk to you now from my parents' perspective and their what they saw because I don't remember anything after this. And my mum said that I walked up the stairs and I was sort of like unstable, I guess you could say. And she knew something wasn't quite right because I was coming home, like arriving home maybe a couple of hours later than I should have, because normally I arrive at maybe like 3 o'clock in the morning, but this time it was like gone five, I think my mum said. And she like knew something wasn't quite right. So she said, like, what happened? Apparently I just ignored her. I walked past, I went into my room, got undressed, folded my clothes up, got into bed. And my mum's like, are you okay? But I didn't answer her. So she told my dad, and my dad was just like, no, he just got really drunk. And then before you know it, I started to vomit, this jet black vomit, and I was snoring really loud. And my mum just said, no, something's wrong. And again, she told my dad, like, something's really wrong with Ryan. And my dad, being my dad, was just like, no, he's so stupid. Like, he's drunk all these black Sambuca shots and
Um,
Jägermeister and stuff. My dad was saying, like, Ryan's done all these shots. Like, I don't even drink that much. My dad was just like, no, he's probably done so many shots. And my dad was just like, no, he'll be fine in the morning. But my mum, with those maternal instincts, was like, no, I think there's something really wrong with him. And again, more hours just passed by, like the time passed by. Thankfully for me, my older brother got a message from a friend and said, like, is Ryan okay? And he was like, why is Ryan not okay? And then he told him what had happened outside the like after the club, after leaving the club. So my brother instantly told my parents to wake me up. My parents come into my room, tried to wake me up, and I was just totally unresponsive. So with that being said, obviously the emergency service were instantly called. And then my dad and my mum just said like it was like all hell broke loose. It was like a movie scene. Like these paramedics all come and they turn up, like two ambulances turn up. They come into the room. There was like sirens and walkie talkies and beeping and noises and things all over my body. And my mum and dad were just like, "What has happened to our son?" And before you know it, they put me on a stretcher and took me in the ambulance and took me away. And my mum followed in the separate ambulance. We went to the first hospital. And again, my mum was sat there alone asking for answers. And they were just like, we don't know. And my mum was just scared, worried. And at one point, she heard my voice down the corridor. So she followed that voice. And her brain, obviously, in this moment, is doing overtime. And as she goes into this room, she followed that voice and she looked. It wasn't even me. So she was like up here with excitement to hear her son to be dropped straight back down to reality and realizing it wasn't even me, it was someone else. So again, she goes back to the waiting room and asking constantly, like, what's happened to my son? Nothing. But then finally they come out and they said, look, it looks like a severe head injury. We're going to have to transfer him to a specialist hospital to get an emergency brain operation. So bearing in mind for any mothers that are listening to this, like my mum heard this about her son, like only just a few hours before she saw me like totally fine. And now she's saying your son's got to go in for an emergency brain operation. Like, what the hell? Like she couldn't believe this. So they took me in the ambulance again, a couple of hours away to that specialist hospital. And my parents obviously followed in pursuit. And obviously when I went there, I did have to go in for that emergency brain operation because I suffered from a fractured skull and a blood clot due to a bleed on the brain. I had to be put into an induced coma because of, say, the trauma that had happened to me. And when my parents got to see me that night, I was there in a coma, laying there in the intensive care unit on that life support machine. And then when the specialists saw my parents around 6 p.m., they told my parents like really would suggest to prepare for the worst because like it's not looking good for Ryan and it's not likely that he's going to be here tomorrow morning. That's what they told my parents. So imagine any parents listening. And again, like if that was said about your son or daughter, how would you feel in that moment? And my poor parents had to drive 2 hours home in complete silence. Just they didn't know what to say. They were lost for words. So my parents obviously returned to where we live, and they just told all of my friends, my family, like it's not looking good for Ryan at all. And they predict like he's probably not going to be here in the morning. And that must have been so tough. Like every time I speak to my parents about this, they're just like distraught. Like it was horrible. I can only just imagine the pain, stress, and anger they went through. And after this, a few days in, it was 3 days in, I was still being kept alive by that life support machine. And then my parents were called and invited to the hospital to speak to that specialist doctor. And as they were sort of invited into this small room in the intensive care unit, my parents just sat down and the doctor said, look, because Ryan has absolutely zero brain activity and because of the injuries that he said, has happened to him, he's not going to make it through. Like he's not going to come back from this at all. These injuries that he sustained, like he's never coming back from this. And like they measured my brain at the stem, like the activity at the stem, and apparently they told my parents like I had zero brain activity measured at the stem of my brain, and they said like no way is he coming back. Like everyone that's suffered these type of injuries, they're either in a wheelchair round the care, round the clock care and attention for the rest of their life, or they just don't pull through. So again, they said like it's necessary now to pull the plug soon on his life support machine because he's not going to come back from this. But for me, my dad, he saved my life. In that moment, my dad, he stood up and again, from my dad's words, he told me that he just stood up and he basically said, like, no fucking way. Like, you're not turning this machine off. Like, I'll tell you when this machine gets turned off. Like, this is my son and I own this machine. Like, I'll tell you when it gets turned off. And because of my dad saying that in that moment, they decided they were going to keep it on for a few more days and check my progress to see if I made any improvements. And over those following days, I did start to make, say, minimal movements. Like I twitched some fingers and moved some toes. And yeah, one day, apparently, my grandma was there. And when we used to go to her house when we was a kid, like we'd never play up, never mess up. Because like she'll spank our ass or something, like she'll give us a whack around the bum. So you never messed around at my grandma's house. And one day she leant down into my right ear and she said, Ryan, open your eyes. And apparently I was laying there and one eye opened and I just stared at everyone. So they run and they told the doctors the news, and the doctors instantly said, this is nothing. This is all electrical impulses. Like he's still not going to come back from this. My parents couldn't believe it. And they knew deep down that I was hearing them, that I was listening. And they couldn't believe what the doctors had said. But my parents, they kept that hope. Because in life, like we all need hope to cope. Hope stands for have only positive expectations. And that's what my parents had. And they knew that I was going to come around. So in those following days, they decided that they're going to reduce the sedation to bring me out of the coma. So that day, all of my friends and family gathered. They reduced that sedation. But for me, my lungs weren't functioning on their own. So I had to be put back into the coma. And again, the doctor said, like, it's not looking good. And if Ryan ever does wake up from this, he will never ever walk or talk again. And he will be in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. Like he won't know anyone. He won't remember anything. So again, my parents said, no, let's try again tomorrow. So again, they all gathered and they come there. They reduced that sedation the next day. Thankfully for me, my lungs did start to function. And it wasn't like I just sat up and I started to speak and stuff like that. No, it was just my lungs were saying on the machine that they were working. And this was now I was in a say coma for 1 week. They reduced sedation, but really it took me about another week to come out of that sedation because I was still in that say comatose state, I guess you could say, if that's the correct word for it. Like I don't even remember this time. However, the thing that I want to speak to you about today is, but just before waking up, I was actually gifted an out of body experience, a near death experience. I'm sure many of you have heard of these things. And this near death experience, what we're going to be speaking about very shortly, literally made me question my whole life, my whole existence, and why we are here as humans on this earth. Like, what is this all about? So, this is what we're going to be speaking about very shortly, my friends.
That really excites me. Okay, so I just wanted to go back to the story. Sorry, so um, the taxi man was in it with these abusers, these bullies.
So, what happened? Like I say, when we got into the first taxi, we got in, it was fine, we was leaving. These guys come, and then he flipped on us and he said, "No, they have booked it. Like, you need to get out. They've already booked it." We was confused, but whatever. We got into a separate taxi. Yeah, there was a bit of pushing and shoving, a bit of disagreement. We said, "Let's get in another taxi." So we left. When our taxi driver, the second driver, pulled over, he didn't say a word. I remember this guy was beating me in the head. My taxi driver didn't even turn around. He didn't even turn around. He looked dead straight. He didn't even turn around. And this, in my opinion, it's not with everyone, but a lot of these taxi drivers, there's like a taxi code, and they all sort of stick together. And I'm
Oh,
not saying all of them are like this, but a lot of the taxi drivers, they would all stick together, whether someone's doing right or wrong. Like, I've heard other stories, not similar things, but different things that it's like, hmm, do you do what's right, or do you do what you want to do, what you think is good for, say, a certain group of people?
mm,
And I don't know, like, for me, it was just like that taxi driver just didn't say anything. Like, he just didn't want to acknowledge what was happening, even though it was in his car. He could have stopped that. He could have
exactly.
drove off. He could have carried on going and taken us back, but he didn't. So for me, I believe he was part of the reason why we did get beaten up. And when it come round to the court, he didn't even have to come to court. They called him out. I remember they called him, and then the barristers or whatever said, like, "Oh, he's not here," and it was okay. And for me, that wasn't right, but look, it is what it is.
But
Later, after the whole court process, the first taxi, what we got sort of taken out of, we found out it wasn't just the four guys that got in, it was the five guys, because the taxi driver turned out to be their friend. Hence why they let the guys take us out of the taxi. So there was five guys against three small boys, basically, and one girl. And these are like five men compared to us.
and so justice was served in the end.
Like, for me, justice, what is justice?
Yeah.
Like, justice for me is the lessons I learned from this whole experience, which we're going to be speaking about more anyway. But justice is, for me, was the priceless life lessons I learned from this painful, awful experience, and being given a second chance. And
True.
for me, justice will never be served. Not for me, really, but for my parents. Like, I'm sure, like, it sounds horrible to say, but I'm sure my parents probably got a good few years shaved off of their life through the stress and the pain that they have to go through. Like, my poor mum having to see all that stuff. My dad was working his ass off in his job. My dad at the time was the only one that provided for us. My dad had to go to work and then come to hospital, which was a 2 hour drive away, just one way every day. So he was working, driving, working, driving. Sometimes he'd come up to that hospital twice a day. So what's that? 2, 4, 6, 8 hours of driving, plus trying to get in a few hours of work. Like, who does that? Like, my
Exactly.
poor dad. Like, I owe my life to my dad, really. Like, my dad is my best friend, and if it wasn't for my dad, like, you wouldn't be hearing my voice today at all.
I know, absolutely. Yeah. I know, well done for everything that you've been through, and the fact that you can share your story today. And okay, let's talk about ayahuasca. So what drew you to ayahuasca?
Okay, so let's just sort of finish the end off what I said about this out of body experience. So it depends how deep you want to go, how much time we got. I can just briefly go over it, or I
Yeah,
can dive deep in and talk about it.
go for it. Yeah, no, yeah, just whatever comes.
Yeah, okay, so right. So before waking up and, say, coming back to Earth, despite what the doctor said, like I mentioned, I was gifted this out of body experience. And why do I say gifted? Because for me, it was the most peaceful, perfect, incredible thing I've experienced and witnessed in my whole life. And look, I'm going to talk to you now from this out of body experience. So this is not in the real world. This is from this vision, this dream, this movie, whatever you want to call it. This is talking from that whole experience. And I never believed in this stuff when I was a kid. Like we talked about it in the school playground when we're 10, 12 years old. I remember talking about it with my friends. We had our own opinions of what, say, happens when you die, for instance. But for me, actually experiencing and witnessing it, I don't know, it just made me question my whole existence, you know. And look, I remember seeing myself, I was looking down at myself, laying on a hospital bed with these two big ladies pushing me. And I was witnessing it through the eyes of someone or something else. And I was sort of like hovering above the left side of me, looking down at me being pushed down this cobbled street. And these two ladies were speaking in this unfamiliar, unknown language. I don't even know what language it was, but they were having this heated debate or discussion. And as they're pushing me down this slight decline of an alleyway, sort of a hill, it was this cobbled street, so the bed's jumping, and my body is starting to slip down this bed. And, you know, as it's going down, my body's just sort of almost coming to the end of the bed. I'm thinking, it's going to fall off. And I hear this whispering saying, they're going to drop him. They're going to drop him. They're going to drop him. You know, I'm thinking, they're going to drop me and I'm going to fall off this bed. As my body is literally about to fall off the end of the bed, we make this sharp left turn through this giant glass set of sliding doors into this reception area. And as they're sort of pushing me towards this sort of curved receptionist desk, I guess you could say, there's a lady pointing to her left. So as we're going towards her, everyone's sort of moving around in this place and they're all speaking in this unfamiliar, unknown language. So the nurses, they turn to their right, which is her left. And now they're pushing me towards this a solid brick wall. Like there's nowhere to go. But now I'm watching it through the eyes, but I'm watching from a distance in this reception area. And I'm watching them push me, and we're getting faster and faster and closer, but we're not moving anywhere. Like it's so hard to explain because I can notice they're getting faster, but it's not moving. Like I can't explain it. And as I'm watching, I'm thinking, they're gonna hit that wall. They're gonna hit the wall. So I start to brace like myself. These eyes are starting to brace myself. And then finally, after the time went by, we hit the wall. Like the gurney, the trolley hit the wall and it lifted. And as it did, the wall opened up like a giant cat flap, and my body just slid through. And as my body slid through, there was like a transition. Like these eyes sort of got sucked back into my body. And now in this out of body experience, my body is just falling. And I'm just looking around, just falling through black nothingness. And as I'm falling, I'm just looking around like, where am I? Like, I don't know where I am.
Wow,
And
interesting.
as time went by, I was just looking for answers. And, you know, like I say, time went by. In this experience, like everything was just forever. Like time didn't exist. Like time was just non-existence. Everything, there was no boundaries, you know, everything just was forever.
Mm.
So as I'm falling, I'm just looking and looking and looking. And I noticed down to my left, there's just this glistening outline of a square, like it's glistening. And I'm moving towards it because I knew I was moving towards it, like being almost magnetized towards it because it's getting bigger and brighter, bigger and brighter. And as it got so big and bright, at one point, it got so bright and so intense, I closed my eyes. And the moment I closed my eyes, bam, the soles of my feet, I felt them hit, which I can only imagine is like another wall, another cat flap, to yet again another dimension. And my feet hit this flap, and I felt my body sort of slide out and drop into another bed. And now my eyes are just hovering here, looking down at me again in another hospital bed, in another place. But it wasn't a room or a building, it was just a place because it was just all white with this giant curtain around me. And I'm thinking, where am I? Like, I don't know where I am. And before long, these doctors and nurses just entered this space and they just started to work on me, you know? They started to operate on my head. And I'm watching them do it. And I mentioned before, like, it was so peaceful. It's the most perfect, peaceful thing that I've ever witnessed in my whole life. Me being worked on by these doctors. And again, it went on for hours, weeks, days, months, years. I don't even know. It just went on forever. Time didn't exist. And I was just watching it and it was just so perfect. And they were sort of whispering in this unfamiliar, unknown language still. And I didn't know what they were saying or what they were doing, but they were just working on my head. and there was no blood or guts or like it was just it was nice, you know. It's just bliss. Bliss is the word that I use. It was bliss. And as time went by, these doctors sort of packed up their tools and they dissipated. They went behind and disappeared, and I couldn't see them anymore. So I'm watching. I'm thinking, now what? And again, forever disappeared and went by. And before you know it, there was another transition. And it was like a Hoover was like inside of my head. And it was like sucked these eyes straight back into my mind, my brain. I don't know. And I'm laying there and I open my eyes. And as I look up and sort of slowly sit up, all I see is this curtain around me. And I'm looking at it and thinking, okay. And time went by again. And these curtains just started to open. But as they did start to open, that's a supernatural bright white light shone through with like such intensity. It made me close my eyes yet again. So I closed my eyes because it was like so bright. It was almost hot. I could feel the heat there. So I closed my eyes. And then once I realized like it sort of dimmed down and was safe to open my eyes again, I did. I opened my eyes. But in this moment was the most profound thing that I'd ever seen in my whole life. I opened my eyes and I looked out there. And I say there because it was just forever. It was forever, like as far as I could see, up, down, left, right, as far as I could see, I looked out and I remember I saw faces, faces of every single person I had ever seen in my whole entire life. Faces. And I remember these faces, they were in order of importance. Like right back there, I could see a face of someone that maybe I bumped into in the street when I was a kid. And then it got closer to like maybe family friends, childhood friends, etc. And it got closer and closer, closer. School, childhood friends, good friends, and then closer and closer. It become like family members. And then right at the end of my bed were the ones that really meant the most to me. My brothers, my sister, my mum, my dad, my grandparents, uncles, aunties, etc. And they were all there. And it was just the faces of these people like right there, you know. But the most important thing that I saw was every single one of these faces that I looked at, they were all silently sobbing. I remember there was just tears running down the faces of these people, and I looked out and my heart just dropped. And the first thing that I thought in my head was, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? I believe I'd done something wrong, and you know, the pain just hit me, and I just thought, oh my God, and my heart started to beat fast. My breath started to increase, and I just started to cry. And I'm just like, I need to grab their attention. I need to grab them. So I started to try and speak, but sort of words didn't really come out. So I thought I'm going to shout and wave my hands. But as I shout, just no words come out at all. And I waved my hands and my arms, and I done this. Nothing happened. They just looked straight through me, and it was like I didn't even exist, you know? And in this moment, I just tried for what seemed to be forever with no real results. And in the end, I gave up on myself. I gave up. I literally just I cried myself to sleep. Closed my eyes and I cried. And when I closed my eyes, I put my head back on that pillow. And when my head hit that pillow, I remember it was just like the biggest suction feeling on the top of my head. It just sucked the whole experience, the faces, the bed, the bright white light, everything up and out of my head. And it was just complete darkness again. It was just darkness. I couldn't see anything, just black. And in that moment, I remembered my body was cold, but it started to warm up. I could feel my body warming up. And then in the distance, I heard a noise. And this noise went beep, beep, beep. And it got louder and faster. And in that moment, I didn't really know what it was, but I began to believe it was my alarm clock because I believed for some reason it was a Saturday morning and I had work that morning. It really wasn't, but I believed it was. So I thought, that's my alarm clock. Like, Ryan, you need to wake up for work. You need to wake up for work, Ryan, because your boss is going to be so angry with you if you're going to be late. So I thought, I need to wake up because I went out and got drunk last night and I'm going to be so late for work. So I was like, Ryan, wake up. Ryan, you need to wake up. And I remember I kept saying to myself, Ryan, you need to wake up. And I did, you know, I opened my eyes and I looked around and I'm in this room all by myself. And all I remember seeing is machines everywhere. And I looked down at myself and I had needles penetrating my skin. I had a tube in my throat, pads all over my body. And as I looked to my left, there was that beep, beep. And that was the machine that had been keeping me alive all along. And in that moment, all of those memories come flooding back. And I remembered every single thing that had happened. And I cried myself to sleep. And that was it. And I remember waking up in the morning. And now I'm in the real world. My parents, my loved ones, my family, they were all stood there in front of my bed.
Wow. Do you know what? That you actually took me there. I was there with you. That's mad. Just the way that you describe that. And it sounds very much like how I was during my plant medicine ceremony. So is this similar to how you was when you did ayahuasca?
Yeah, great question. So many things that happened after that hospital. Obviously, I went home, even though doctors said I wouldn't walk, talk again, all of that stuff. They were adamant. Only just one week after, I was basically being sent home. It was a long, slow process, right? But then I did make a full recovery in the end. But years and years went by, and many things happened in between. But then it was the year 2020 with COVID. After many things happened, I went through a depression after a relationship. This and many other things that had happened in between.
Mm.
But I really hated myself at one point in my life. I was depressed after that relationship breakup, but I didn't really know who I was. I lost who I was. My identity was wrapped up in that relationship. So when that relationship ended, I almost ended too because I almost took my own life because I really didn't know who I was. So again, COVID, the lockdown again was a blessing in disguise for me because it allowed me to go on that inward journey. And I never had the time to look inwards to discover who I truly was. And, in life, if you don't go within, you'll end up going without. And for many, many years, I was looking externally for all of the answers and happiness, which I believe come externally, until I was given that time through COVID, through lockdown, to go on that inward journey. And I started to ask my parents what really happened to me. Like, why was I sent back? Why was I given the gift of life for, I would say, the second time, but people call me a cat with nine lives because many things happened through childhood where I was literally on my deathbed. Like, I should have died. Like, crazy things happened, cracked my head open multiple times. My poor mum, don't know how I didn't die as a teenager and stuff. These stunts that I used to do, you name it. But why was I sent back this time? From even doctors saying, like, he's never going to survive this. Why was I sent back? So I've done many things like breath work and meditation, and I started to really dive deep and think, I've been sent back for a reason. I've been sent back, I believe, by my creator to finish the job that I was sent here to do in the first place. And that's why I personally believe that all of those faces in that out of body experience were crying because I had died before my time and I hadn't completed the job, which was to help others discover, design, and live their best life and become the very best versions of themselves. And I hadn't yet done that job. And that's why all of those faces were crying because they couldn't become their best self without me being here. And I was not now there anymore on earth. I had died. So I was given the gift of life again to say, go back and finish what you were sent to do. So I believe that after much, much meditation. I remember sitting in that bedroom at my parents' house doing deep meditation for hours on end. And I truly believe that is the case. So I started to look at other options, other avenues, and I read into plant-based medicines. Obviously, through deep breath work and meditation, you can release this DMT into the pineal gland if you do it for long enough and strong enough. And I truly believe a few times I was very close because I remember seeing like shining lights and colourful lights and some crazy things, and I thought this is breathwork, and I'd done it for months on end every single day, and it was amazing at one point. Yeah, it was incredible, and I couldn't get to where I wanted to go. I wanted to go back to that place where I was, where I saw these faces, and I thought, how am I going to do this? So I looked into plant-based medicines. I looked into mushrooms. I looked into ayahuasca. And I thought, yeah, maybe Mother Ayahuasca or mushrooms or something is calling me to take that next step and go into this. And look, I'm not one for say drugs, but as soon as you look up these things, it's like drugs,
Mm.
right? Drugs,
Yeah.
drugs, whatever. So I done my research and I soon realized that people that are not up to date and not informed or have done the research and that say the results backed based research and people that have actually had incredible benefits from doing these things, whether it's ayahuasca, whether it's mushrooms, whether it's breathwork, whatever you do, people have had incredible results. And you go on the internet, you type in benefits of doing plant-based medicines, consequences, like you're gonna find information for both. If you looked up drinking bottled water, for instance, the benefits of drinking bottled water, you'll find the benefit. If you looked up consequences of drinking bottled water, people will tell you all the bad things that happen. Like what you seek in life, you're going to find. So
Yeah.
I started to focus on what I wanted was to find the information of the positive things. And I found people had had incredible results through these things. So I said, maybe one day I'm going to do it. And time goes by, things happened. Long story short, I ended up quitting my one and only day job of over a decade. And I got on this deep journey of self and I started to coach other people, started to share my journey, featured in books, magazines, radio stations, podcasts, you name it. And people were getting help from my journey. And one day, yeah, I was guided to take massive action, which was to take a one-way trip to Mexico, to Latin America. Something was calling me to Latin America. So I booked a flight, I booked a one-way ticket to Mexico, and I left the next week. And I didn't know what it was. In my head, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do mushrooms in Mexico. Maybe I'll do, I don't know what I'll do, but I was just trusting the process. I was like, whatever is going to happen, I'm being guided in the direction where I should be going. Many months went by in Mexico and nothing really happened. But then one time, I was taking this long bus trip to this place, and it's a place where many people go to explore mushrooms. It's famous. And I go there. I was like, I'm not going to do mushrooms. I'll just see what this place is like, and I'll leave. But I met a few really nice people, and it was like, oh, we're going to do mushrooms. You should look into it. So I looked into this place, and I thought, you know what, something's calling me to do it. And I done mushrooms there, and look, we all done it together. We went up into the forest, and we sat there. We done some mushrooms, and I felt so happy, so joyful, so I don't know, just so happy. And I thought this is my first ever psychedelic experience. Maybe it's guiding me and calling me to try something more. Maybe ayahuasca is next on the list. Maybe I don't know, but I'm gonna trust the journey. I'm not gonna try and force anything. So I traveled from Mexico through every country down to Colombia, and I got to Colombia at the end of that year, towards the end of that year. And as I get to Colombia, I ended up booking a flight back to England. I don't know why, but someone was saying go back to England, so I booked a flight back. But literally, maybe a week before leaving back to England, I met an English guy in a hostel, and he's like, "Oh yeah, from Colombia, where we were staying, close to where we were staying. I've just done a week-long retreat, ayahuasca, amazing place." So he showed me, and he gave me all of the details, and I looked into this. Everything checked out okay. It looked really safe, secure, amazing testimonials, results. But maybe this is for me. So I've done the research. I reached out to the guy that run the place. We had a great conversation. I thought maybe I'm going to book this. So I fly back to England, and the moment that I stepped onto that plane, I felt that I left my soul in Colombia. I felt something held onto my soul, and it's saying you made the wrong decision. And that whole flight back, I was just sat there like this, like, what have you done? So I got back to England late November, start of December 2022, and I said to my mum, I'm going back. something's calling me back to Colombia. I don't know what, but I should have stayed. So I'm going to book a flight before Christmas. My mum was like, please stay for Christmas. So I stayed for Christmas. After Christmas, I'm like, I'm going. I'm going. I kept saying these dates, and my mum kept putting me off and off and off. In the end, I agreed, like January the 16th, I believe it was, or something. I can't remember now. But I said, I'm going back. I'm going back. And my mum was adamant not to go back in the year 2023, January, because my 30th birthday at the time would have been February, the start of February. So my mum was like, please stay for your 30th birthday. We're going to make a party and all this. I'm like, Mum, for me, it's a birthday. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care. I don't need presents. I don't want anything from anyone. Just call me out there and I'll say hello, happy birthday, all that stuff. My mum was like so upset, like, oh, you just left with a week notice last time. So I said, okay, for you, I'm going to have my birthday here. And then I think it was the 6th or the 5th, I can't remember. I'm going to leave. So with that being said, I booked the flight for a few days after my birthday. I had my birthday and yeah, I fly straight back out to Colombia and I was excited. I was happy. But just before leaving, I booked the ayahuasca retreat. So bearing in mind those few weeks there, I was preparing my body. I went back down to Medellin, where I literally am now with this call. I went to Medellin and I spoke to the guy. I prepared my body for 2 weeks, where it was like no bad thoughts, where I've been doing my meditation anyway, no bad thoughts, journaling every day, breath work, exercise, good food only, like no sugar, no alcohol, you name it. I was on this 2 weeks solid, clearing my body of all toxins, because that's what you need to do to get the best results and experience from this retreat. So I felt good. I felt healthy, happy. I felt really ready for this thing. And I was a bit scared, of course, but something was telling me like you've done the right thing here. Like it was almost guiding me towards the retreat. And again, there was many things like we can go into this deeper another day, maybe, or you can reach out to me if you wanted to know more things about this. But look, we got picked up, and like there was a whole way of doing it, and it was happy, it was fun because I met other people, and we go to this retreat, and all of us were scared. The majority of the people there was first timers, and our nerves were settled because we spoke to the guy that runs the place. We got out anything that scared us, any fears, any questions we had. We felt good. And again, I'm not going to go into it too much, but we done 4 ayahuasca ceremonies throughout that week-long experience, and every ceremony you got the opportunity to have the opportunity to have 3 cups of ayahuasca. So the majority of times I done 2 cups, and I think once I had 3 cups. But we go there, and the first time I ever done it, ayahuasca, like we was nervous, we was scared, we was panicking, but we just kept telling ourselves like we're guided to this, we're gonna be okay. We done our journaling, we spoke to each other in this word circle beforehand, and we took it. And like again, I could speak forever about this. It depends how deep you want to go, but the first night I was the first person up to it, I believe, and I take the cup and it went down literally like tar in my body. I could just feel ayahuasca just spreading itself around my lungs and my chest. And I went and sat back down and like I started to like many different things. I can't remember off the top of my head without my journal here. It's over there somewhere. But I remember there was the first 2 were night sessions. So we was there at night, like the dark, the ceremony. It was just so nice, like the way that it was all set up, and it was so spiritual. And I was hearing like different things come in. I was seeing different things come into my mind, and yeah, it was weird. It was wonderful. And at one point, I thought it wasn't doing anything. And then the Taita, the shaman, he spoke with a guy like that was the volunteer there, and come over to me and said like the Taita said like you're the chosen one. You should be looking out for people. And I felt like the need, the urge to just sit up on my bed, like the mattress outside, and just look out for other people and guide other people in this journey too. And I was journaling. I put my intentions for every ceremony, and I think that specific night where I was looking out for people, my intention, I believe, was for Mother Ayahuasca to show me or give me a way of showing me like I am on the right path of say quitting my day job and going all in on my dreams to become say a speaker, an author, a keynote speaker, all of these things, to be on stages all across the world, to help to inspire, empower, and guide other people towards creating the life of their dream. I wanted Mother Ayahuasca, I wanted her to show me you have made the right decision. And that thing that happened to me that specific night was like confirmation, yes, you made the right decision. Look out for other people. And it felt like that night specifically, like everyone was just staring at me, looking for reassurance. And I was like giving them thumbs up and like, yes, you can do it. And like whispering to them. And everyone would seem to stare at me. And I don't know, just fill my heart and body and soul with joy, purpose, fulfillment, meaning. And I just felt so good in that moment. And again, that was a tick for me. My intention was ticked off. The next night, I had another intention, which was ticked off again. And we had a break day. And then we had the first day session. And I'll go a little bit into this. And the owner of the retreat told us like the day sessions are completely different. And we was nervous, we was excited. And that specific day, I remember I got up so early, I showered, I went and sat out and looked into the mountains, like mountains all around us in this valley, and there was like birds flying over, like huge birds whistling and tweeting and flying over like majestically. It was amazing, and I was just filled with gratitude, with joy. And I remember I was sat there and I see them going up to get their first cups, and I went and got my first cup, and I took my chair and I said I'm going to go sit on that hill. And I remember I was just overwhelmed with gratitude. I remember I just crying my eyes out. I was just crying tears of joy because I was so happy that I was in Colombia. I'd been traveling for all this time. I was doing what I was doing, and I'd been given a second chance. I'm back here on Earth, and like not many people get a second chance. Not many people get to experience what I went through in that out of body experience. And for me, it was just a gift, an absolute gift. And I believe we all open two gifts every day, and that is our eyes. And that's why they call this moment the present. Like I believe we're all given two lives, but the second only begins when we realize that we just have one. And for me, that was a big eye opener because I've been given more than two lives. Like people say, like I mentioned earlier, like I was a cat with nine lives. I probably had 10 or 11 lives in my life, but this is the last life that I ever need because this is the one that I'm going to make count. And when I was sat there, I was just thinking, I'm so happy and grateful to be given this opportunity, and I was just flooding with tears, and I was looking at my friends, and it was just joyful and so happy. And then I went and took my chair and sat close to the band, the music where they're playing this medicine music. And I took my second cup and I just sat there on this deck chair, this white deck chair or white plastic chair. And time went by, I was like, I'm not feeling anything. And some things happened previously. Like I was looking to my friends and we're laughing, we're joking, and I was just at one point. This is maybe one of the effects of ayahuasca. Me and a couple of these girls that were there, like my friends, we're just bursting out in laughing. I couldn't control my laughter, and people were looking. I was like, "What is not doing?" I'm just laughing at everyone and everything. I'm just uncontrollable laughter. And then at one point, I just get blasted into a completely different dimension. And I'm on this chair and I'm just spinning around and my head is almost hitting the floor and I'm up and I'm down and I'm side to side. And it's so intense. It's like the way that I first explained it was like I was inside a kaleidoscope on a roller coaster. Like this is the only way that I can explain it. I see colors, shapes, things, gems, and they're all coming towards me and spinning, and it was insane, and it was all happening and unfolding like so quick and in an instant and changing, and my heart was going, and I'm just like, where am I? And it changed, and before you know it, I was like I can only explain like Alice in Wonderland. That's all I can remember. Sort of like it's so hard to explain these things. Like some of these things are unexplainable,
Yeah.
and then my eyes are open and I'm seeing it in real life, and then my eyes are closed and I'm sort of like imagining it as well. And it was like I'm here, I'm there, where am I? And I just didn't know what was happening, where I was.
Mm.
One point I looked down at my arm and it's bent, my leg is bent, my heart is beating so fast and my heart stopped, and I'm feeling for a pulse and I'm like, I'm dead, but it's all okay. So like, my greatest fear at the time was death, and I become totally fine with the fear of death. I was like, well, I'm still here and I'm having a good time, so there's no need to fear death, like fear not living. And all of these things unfolded, and it was crazy. And many crazy things happened. I hear people speaking in different languages, and even though they're speaking in English, it was coming out in like Hebrew and French, and I could understand everything. And I'm thinking, where am I? When is this gonna stop? And at one point, I thought to myself, like, I'm never ever gonna see my parents ever again. And then in the end, I thought, Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but it's all going to be okay. Whatever happens, it's going to be completely fine. And I just learned to just relax, breathe, and just enjoy this journey, like this roller coaster, the whole journey. And when I come to terms of like releasing all attachment and all control that I wanted to have about life, was when I sort of become free and I just said, things are going to unfold the way that they should. We
Mm.
can't control the majority of things in life, but as long as you trust the process and let the journey of life unfold exactly how it was and have complete confidence in the journey, is when you're going to experience the best of life and you're going to attract the greatest things towards you. It's not about having, say, paranoia about what if it's going to go like this, maybe this. It's about having something called pronoia, which is the belief that the world is conspiring in our favor at any given moment. So when
Amazing.
that happened, I come total confidence in the journey. And yeah, more days happen, more experiences happen, and sort of to wrap up on this ayahuasca experience, I travelled from Colombia after this, filled with joy, gratitude, a new lease of life almost, just grateful for everything, looking at plants, birds, animals, happy, smiling. I felt completely different. I went all the way down to Brazil for every country, and then again, Mother Ayahuasca was calling me back once again. So after many months, I took the decision to go back there for my second retreat, and I'd done another week there, and we had some more crazy experiences. But then after that, I felt really good, and yeah, I've been traveling ever since.
Wow.
Stayed in Colombia, went down to another few places, and went to Venezuela where I was before, and now again I'm back in Colombia, very close to the place where I've done those two ayahuasca retreats right now as I'm speaking to you guys.
Wow, amazing. So, I mean, experiences sound surreal. And what would you like my listeners to take away from your journey and your experience with ayahuasca that you've described today?
That's a great question, actually. That's a brilliant question. So let's just put ayahuasca aside at the moment, 'cause some people might be listening and think like, "I'll never do it. I'm not ready." I personally believe, like I mentioned before, if you don't go within, you'll end up going without. Like I believe all of us have everything we've ever wanted and needed inside of us, ready to come out and share with yourself, share with the world, to be to be allowed to become. We have so much trapped inside of us, but we are the gatekeeper. We're the one with the key, but we need to open ourselves up, become vulnerable, seek help, advice, support, service from other people to unlock those chains that are wrapped around us, whether it's society, friends, family, to allow ourselves the permission to become. And once we can do that, we can understand ourselves. And the biggest journey that you'll ever go on is the journey of self, because that's the most rewarding, most exciting, most beneficial journey, the most impactful journey that you'll ever go on. Me, you, all of us. When you go within and you understand who you are, what you want, why you are here on this earth, and what impact you want to have before you leave this earth, because we're all going to leave here at one point. Like nobody is getting out of this life alive. When we come back, I don't know.
True.
But when you can go inwards, discover what it is that you want, who you are truly, like your true authentic self, is when you're really going to make the most out of this life. Whether you do plant based medicines, whether you do week long retreats, meditations, whatever you do, just start to ask yourself one single question, or a couple of questions could be: number one, who am I? Who am I? Not your name, your job, your car, your bank balance. Who am I in here? This thing, what is it in here? Because this is just a shell. This is not us. Like this is what's allowing us to be, to do
Mm.
things. Like if we didn't have this shell, we wouldn't be able to function. But the true version of us is trapped inside here somewhere, waiting to come out. So keep asking yourself on a daily basis, who am I? What do I want? And how do I want to be of service to the world, to others? Because I believe all of us are here for a reason, and it's down to us and us alone to discover the true, authentic version of ourselves not what other people say, not what society, friends, family say, but who we know deep down is. So if someone can take something away from this one today, I please beg you and urge you, don't get to the end of your life not knowing who it is that you truly are, what you want, and what you are here to do and be of service and to share with the world, whether it's painting, singing, coaching, whatever it is. You can do anything you've ever wanted. You can be, do, and have every single thing you've ever wanted to be, but it's down to you to allow yourself the permission and the time to discover that who that is. Whether you found it out at 15, 50, or 100, it doesn't matter what age. There's no time limit on knowing you. So to finalize, I'll just say go on that journey of yourself and don't stop until you're happy with understanding who it is that you are. And things can change. You might find one day you think you found yourself, the next day it could be completely different. That is completely okay. It's okay to change, my friends.
Amazing. Wow. They are some really inspirational final words. Thank you, Ryan. Your journey has just been fascinating, and you're such a great speaker as well. So
Thank you so much.
where can my listeners find you?
So the best places to find me on the majority of social medias, you just type at Ryan Nurse underscore, mainly Instagram. I have a book. It's titled Sort Your Shit Out. You can find that on Amazon. Type in Sort Your Shit Out, Ryan Nurse, and it can come up. It's literally how to create the life of your dreams. It's a step-by-step process of everything I've done to get me from where I was in that unfulfilling job on my deathbed. It's literally the whole process, how I took my life from deathbed to sunbed, from depression to progression, from calamity to crystal clear clarity is in that book. And my second book, if you wanted to get on the wait list, is Dying with Regrets.ryannurse.com. And that's my second book, which will be released early next year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question. What's next for you? Obviously,
Yeah,
another.
so my main focus right now is the second book. So we're just going to be starting within the next few weeks the first edits on that book. So it's ready for the first edits.
Wow. And you're just unstoppable.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much again, Ryan. I know your journey is going to be very inspiring to everybody who listens to this. And everyone, please do get in touch with Ryan if you have any questions about anything that we've discussed. I know we've hit some pretty sensitive topics here, and yeah, please do get in touch if you have any questions or queries or comments. And we always look forward to hearing from you. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in again to the Victim to Victor podcast, everybody. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next show. Take care, my friends.